In my recent videos, there have been a few, probably about a handful, that have rebuked me for sharing them. And I get where they're coming from. However, God's truth is stronger than we think. The Holy Spirit is with me, just as it is with you and with all believers. And it's the Holy Spirit that leads us to all truth. It seems that most theological discussions, especially hard truths, are held in echo chambers. The same as what I've seen happens in academia. And in academia, it has led to stagnation, with popular opinions becoming dogma that no one else can question. And we've seen this happen so many times throughout history. For example, no one could question and even have been put to death for suggesting that the Earth may be orbiting around the sun. Could it be that the same has happened with church dogma? We need to be able to have these difficult discussions openly, especially when it seems these types of problematic questions are not being addressed in the churches we go to. If I read the comments, so many of us are desperately seeking a deeper relationship with God. So many of us are seeking questions that are not being answered by the churches we attend. And this is the reason I started to document my journey, because these questions that I have were also not being addressed by the churches I attend. And yes, what I share is not always going to align with everything everybody thinks. But this is the uncomfortable journey that learning takes us through. Getting to know God is an uncomfortable process, one in which we are constantly needing to come face to face with our failures, with our delusions, and with our misconceptions. And what makes it most uncomfortable is that as we seek God, He compels us to confront our dogma too. Those truths we hold so tightly that we don't allow anyone to question them. If I read the comments, it seems like the churches many of us attend struggle with this very thing. They don't want to lose people, and so they play it safe, sticking to non-controversial sermons. But that means we never get any real experience with how to deal with information that goes against what we believe. And this is one of the core lessons Jesus was teaching us 2,000 years ago. He was teaching us that yes, He is the Messiah that has been prophesied throughout the Bible, and that yes, He will be fulfilling everything that is written, but that no, He will do so very differently to how all the experts thought He would. Jesus confronted the dogma of the day head on. God has a purpose for us, and every moment in our lives seems to be preparing us for that purpose. Several years ago, my daughter got a rare illness, and her left arm was paralyzed. Our expert doctors, when confronted with this rare condition, struggled to handle the situation and offered us boilerplate solutions as treatments. Much like our churches, they tend to stick to everyday stuff. And when we come to them with really difficult questions, they try to send us on our way as quickly as they can with boilerplate answers that may seem wise, but leave the deep question unanswered. Well, my daughter and I didn't accept the wise-sounding answers from our doctors. I did my homework and saw that only 2% of kids like my daughter had any significant recovery following such treatments. And so, just like I'm doing now with these videos, my daughter and I explored building our own solution to her medical challenges. We recorded videos where we presented our ideas and solutions and then asked questions about what we were doing. And thousands of people replied back with their expertise, their guidance, and their knowledge. And even though there were a few that insisted we follow the boilerplate solutions and discouraged us from doing anything that wasn't aligned to their dogma, we continued on. And in just 7 months, after learning from strangers all over the world, we achieved the impossible. We built a brain-controlled exoskeleton that allowed her to move her arm again. And what's most powerful about this story is that because of our efforts, she started to regain movements well beyond anything other patients have experienced.
And she went ahead and she showed us what she can do.
Had we listened to the experts and their dogma, we wouldn't be where we are today. This is a lesson that God taught me in my previous life. And now, 7 months after becoming a Christian, I've come to recognize that this is one of the lessons I'll be applying now in my new life too. God does not want us to blindly rely on our pastor. God does not want us to blindly rely on our church. God doesn't want us to blindly rely on our traditions or the dogma that our community doesn't want us to question. He wants us to rely on Him. He wants us to seek Him. The big challenge we have is that we are wired to take the least amount of effort to come to a conclusion. This is how our brains work. It's how they've been programmed. And it works really well, so don't get me wrong. Most of the time we need to do this. For example, when I used to play piano, I played it best when I wasn't thinking, when I wasn't trying to read every single note, and instead let the thousands of hours of practice flow through me onto the keyboard. But we often forget that we need to switch that off if we are considering something new or if we are seeking the truth. My daughter's doctors instinctively started to offer her boilerplate solutions instead of considering the contextual relevance of her unique situation. And I think this is why the church feels so stagnant, because it seems far easier to go with the flow than to seek the contextually relevant truth for each unique circumstance. And the word unique is so important here. With God, the beauty is with our unique journey we take to find Him and get to know Him. Each of our relationships with God is completely unique, and there should be nothing traditional about it. This is why God chose to write the Bible in a language that may be so vague, and it's because one simple sentence can be read by 100 different people who then, through that, learn 100 different lessons. We are all unique, and God's purpose for us and truth He wants to share with us is so unique it cannot be contained within any dogma, no matter which church's traditions it comes from. It is not within echo chambers where we all agree that truth is revealed, but by wrestling with the Word. And I take such encouragement for finding so many brothers and sisters who are in the same boat as I am, wrestling to find God's truth together. We are literally living through the final pages of prophecy that our brothers and sisters have been dreaming of for thousands of years. So I take comfort from following what is written in Hebrews, that we spur one another on toward love and good deeds, encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. I want to end this video with my testimony. I'm a new Christian who, 7 months ago, had a vision while I was awake and lying on the couch. Those that knew me before know that I don't do visions. I'm a practical science guy. But this happened to me, and it changed me. I hope God will reveal truth through it to you as He did for me. A few months ago, I had an intensely vivid vision of eternity and what is to come. It was so intense I felt it in my bones. I felt what eternity is, and it nearly ripped me apart. It also changed my life. This experience stripped away the illusion of what I thought life is. And the vision ended with a choice. But before the vision took me to the choice, it showed me my life, as it would be if I didn't make the choice. It started very simply. I saw a grid that stretched out to infinity. This was going to be my life. I saw one of the grids being filled with a clear white square. This represented a good day, one in which I felt productive, joyful, and connected. I then saw the next grid being filled in, this time with a black square. This was a bad day, one where I had arguments or struggles and pain. It then started to zoom out, and as it did, I saw how my life had periods of good and bad. And as it zoomed out more, I saw my life stretch out before me. I could see days and weeks. Then I could see months and years. I soon was looking at my whole life until this moment, and it showed a constant balance between good and bad. But this balance wasn't peaceful, it was a constant battle. No matter what I did, I couldn't get more good out of this life. I then saw the lives of those closest to me, my family, and my friends. I noticed their lives were similar, but not exactly like mine. And despite these differences, I noticed we all had the same struggles. In the vision, I then zoomed out to show me all of humanity's lives, right from the start, and it looked like a black and white fractal. I could see the struggle we have gone through throughout all of history. I saw areas of more light, where some of us had moments of peace, and areas of more dark, showing where wars were fought. And in this fractal, I saw how humanity's great minds created systems that they planned would bring utopias. But all those systems failed to even dent this balance between light and dark. The darkness seemed to be a corrupt virus that was embedded in all we did, even embedded in our best intentions. Then I was led to see the future, and my heart was ripped in half as I noticed that the light that was fighting to keep a balance and the darkness at bay would soon be gone. An event would soon take place that once crossed would be the end of hope. The light would soon leave humanity to its choice. As I looked into the distant future, into all eternity, I saw no hope for humanity, no way for humanity to find a way to create its own light. All of those who, like me, have not made a choice will soon be destined to an eternity in this universe without light. And I saw that not even death would save us from this universe. I was then brought back to today. We still have a very short moment in which we can choose, but I saw that we need to make a choice and that the light was about to leave. The light was going back to where it all began. A world before there was darkness. A world before humanity made its first choice. This first choice brought in the darkness because we chose it. Light wanted us to remain in the light, but we made a choice to bring in the darkness. However, I saw that the light had a plan to not immediately let us be overcome by that choice, but to give us a moment of grace, an opportunity to see the depths of what we chose, while the light would work in the background to keep the darkness at bay for a short time. During this short time, we could still choose to come back to the light, but that short time was now coming to an end. I had a choice to make, and only moments to make it before the darkness comes. Since I've had this vision, I've been looking for its deeper meaning. I've been looking for an explanation that would make sense to me, someone who's not an expert in theology. And I found peace with the interpretation that I'd like to now share with you. In this vision, the place where it all started was the Garden of Eden. It's here where God created us to be like Him, to do much of what He loves to do, to take care of creation. But He created us for a whole lot more. God was doing something new with us, something special. He created us because He wanted our company. He wanted us to share in this creation, to walk and work with Him, to continue creating with Him in a perfect universe. This was such an awesome gift He wanted to give us that He had to make sure we understood how amazing a gift it actually was. God didn't want us to blindly follow Him. He wanted us to recognize this gift and to choose to follow Him. He wanted us to understand the full depth of the options available to us, and with that understanding, make an informed choice. That meant God needed to risk it all, to allow us to make poor choices, and even to potentially choose to reject Him and the gift He wanted to give. So God gave us this choice. We could choose the easy path, which was to trust God and remain in this perfect world, or we could choose the hard path, to question God, not to trust that He knows best, and to do things our own way. And if I'm honest, it's a choice I would also have made. It's a choice I continue making even today. Every time I don't follow God's perfect plan for me, every time I feel anger or hold resentment, every time I succumb to fear, lust, or greed, every time I lie or bend the truth just a little. Every day I make choices that brings a little more darkness into this world. And instead of recognizing this, just like Adam, I choose to blame God, trying to make the argument that if God were good and perfect, why would he create a world like this? The reality is, he didn't. We chose to make the world like this. However, despite our rebellion, God had a plan. He would not let us immediately be overrun by the dark choices we make. Instead, for a short time, even though we chose to be removed from God, he would work in the background to keep the darkness at bay, to give us an opportunity to reconsider. When I look back into my own life, I see this in action. So many of my choices in life could easily have ended in tragedy, in pain, suffering, and even death. But instead, I now see God's hand holding back the consequences for a short time. And he's doing this in the hope that I'd come to recognize the gift he is still offering to me, even today. As I look to understand this part of the vision, to understand this period where God was providing us an opportunity to reconsider, I saw three major periods. For about 2,000 years, while God was holding back most of the darkness, we lived blindly in the world we were creating. We struggled as a teenager would, who chose to run away from home, and our pride kept us from recognizing we needed help. We were blind in our rebellion. Then God, despite our continual rebellion, helped us even more. In addition to holding back the darkness, he provided us a blueprint to help us understand what is good and therefore creates light, and what is bad and brings in the darkness. God showed this blueprint to Moses. Moses tried his best to interpret it and write it out for us to follow. But for another 2,000 years, we failed to understand the true meaning of this blueprint. We continually misinterpreted it and chose to do things our way, thinking we knew better. Despite this, God then helped us even more. In addition to providing us this blueprint and holding back the darkness, he sent his only Son to show us how to properly interpret this blueprint, how to live a perfect life, and how to make good choices. But instead, in our pride, we rejected the Son and killed him. And in so doing, God gave us his greatest gift so far. Despite my continued rebellion, he would offer me a free gift. His Son would take up the consequences of my poor choices. All the darkness God was holding back from my life, his Son would take on his shoulders. All the pain I caused, all the punishment I deserved, all the hate I created, every consequence God saved me from, every bit of darkness God was holding back from my life, his Son would take on my behalf. And all I needed to do was recognize this gift, recognize I was doing wrong, and I was responsible. If I did this and came to his Son, asking to be forgiven, his Son would gladly do so. That was all I needed to do. And for the last 2,000 years, God made this gift available to everyone. And yet so many of us are still choosing to rebel. Which brings us to today, just moments before our choice becomes final. In the vision I saw an almost immediate fall into complete darkness. It's the final stage, a period where God shows us what the world would be like if he were not working in the background to keep the darkness at bay. It takes just 7 years for everything humanity was able to accomplish to be destroyed by our corruption and rebellion. All goodness, all light, everything that has ever made life worth living came from God. And now, for all eternity, those that chose to remain in the darkness will be separated from that light in the hell of their own making. However, for those that did recognize this choice, who recognized they could not dig themselves out of the hole they made, and instead chose the free gift to come back to the light, for us, a new universe awaits, one in which we are brought back to where it all began. This time, knowing full well the depth of the gift we have been given. This time, with God, who we chose to be with.